It is now recording, and I'm going to go ahead and start.
Hello, everyone. Bienvenidos, bienvenidas y bienvenides a todos, todas y todes. Welcome to Bilingual Story Hour at Wild Rumpus Books. Estamos súper felices de que estén ustedes aquí con nosotros el día de hoy para otra hora de cuentos bilingüe. Today we have a very special event with some very special guests. We will be discussing the book, listening to and discussing the book Intersection Allies, We Make Room for All, translated as InterseccionAlianza, Hacemos Espacio Para Todxs, with some of our authors who we are very happy and grateful to have with us today. Les quiero presentar a nuestra nueva compañera de trabajo en la librería Wild Rumpus. We have a new coworker at Wild Rumpus. Her name is Jess. Se llama Jess. Y take it away, Jess.
Hola, bienvenidos. Me llamo Jess. My name is Jess, and I'm a new worker here at Wild Rumpus, so I'm excited to join you all. Like Lee said, today we are going to be focusing on InterseccionAlianza, Hacemos Espacio Para Todxs. But before we start, I just want to go over a few logistics for everyone today. And I want to start first by asking everyone if they can introduce themselves in the chat. So if you can give us tu nombre y tu edad, your name and age, that would be great. And there will also be some links dropped up in the chat below that we have a 15% off code for this book, and it's valid for 1 month. And once the authors and translators are done with their presentation, there will be a short Q&A afterwards. So you guys can ask your questions in the chat or the Q&A box. But with that being said, we could go ahead and get started. So I just want to welcome Chelsea Johnson, LaToya Council, and Carolyn Santiago. And you guys can go ahead and start.
Thank you, thank you. Let me get started sharing my screen with you all. Give me a thumbs up if you can see it. Awesome. All right, LaToya, take it away.
All right. Hola, Todxs. Bienvenidos a la lectura en voz alta de InterseccionAlianza. Hacemos Espacio Para Todxs. We will begin with a love yourself warm-up exercise. So everyone, take an opportunity to stand up with me. I'm gonna scoot back here as I can. All my young folk, Los Jóvenes, it's morning, and I want you to just shake it out. Just get yourself ready to go. And you see these two things in front of you, your hands, los manos. I want you to wave to your friend on your right. Hey friend, it's morning, I know. And then I want you to wave to your friend on your left. Hey, it might be your pet cat like mine, who's rubbing my leg right now. And then I want you to take those same two hands and wrap them around yourself and give yourself a big squeeze like this. And then take those same two hands and put a smile on your face. Bienvenidos, bienvenidos, bienvenidos. Chelsea, take it away.
Thank you so much, LaToya. Hola, me llamo Chelsea. Soy de Chicago, pero estoy en Minneapolis, just like you. I use the pronoun she or ella. I am from, as I mentioned, the windy city of Chicago. I first learned about feminism and intersectionality in college at Spelman College, a historically Black college for women in Atlanta, Georgia. So like my two friends here, Karina and LaToya, I am a social scientist. So you may have heard the word scientist before, but scientists don't just make rockets or work with chemicals. Scientists also study people. So I am a social scientist that studies people for companies in order to make the internet a safer place. And I am one of a trio called CLC Collective with LaToya and our colleague Carolyn Choi, who came together to write a book about intersectionality. So I'm going to kick it over to LaToya to introduce herself as well.
Hola, me llamo LaToya. Soy de Carolina del Norte. My pronouns are she or ella. I am a social scientist who studies love and how loving relationships are challenging because of our identities. And I'm going to kick it over to our colleague, Karina.
Hi everyone, hola todos. Mi nombre es Karina. Mis pronouns son she, her, ella. Ahorita vivo en Los Ángeles, pero soy de San Diego y mis papás son de México. Y ahorita, como LaToya y Chelsea, también estoy estudiando para mi doctorado. So Chelsea already has her PhD, and me and LaToya are following in her steps to get our PhD, which we will soon, in sociology. And today I'll be reading the book in Spanish for everyone.
Thank you. We are so excited to meet you all today.
Okay, so we're going to begin telling you a little bit about the book and give a primer before we begin. So our book, IntersectionAlianza, We Make Room for All, it is about intersectionality and allyship. And we wrote this book because we remembered our experiences growing up as kids who did not always get to read books with characters that look like us. So many of our childhood books featured boys, and when girls were featured, they were in princess characters. And as we mentioned, we're social scientists. And so that means we usually write for adults. But we wanted to help create characters who share some of our experiences and our friends' experiences growing up. And writing IntersectionAlianza was our way to help do that. It was our way to remember our experiences and to, by giving to the current generation and the future generation in order to help build a stronger world, a better world.
So since writing the book, what's been going on with us? Well, before the pandemic, we had an amazing opportunity to go on a book tour and visit schools and libraries all over the place in cities like Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., New York, Atlanta, and also here in Minneapolis. So in each of these places, we met kids and families just like you and had lots of deep and powerful conversations about our experiences with racism, sexism, xenophobia, homophobia, all of the things, and what it's like to be, go live in the world right now, and lots of other real topics. So since the pandemic, we now visit libraries and classrooms and bookstores through Zoom like this and Google Meets to talk about what it means to be an ally right now and how to do good in the world and how to love and appreciate and understand ourselves and all of our complexity.
So in 2020, we received so much support and positive feedback about IntersectionAlianza, including a request to translate the book in Spanish. And so after hearing from many members of the Latinx communities about the important message of intersectionality and the way it has been presented in our book and its impact in communities, we wanted to challenge ourselves to meet the moment by reaching more communities and folks through the Spanish translation. And as social justice scholars, it is important for us to use our voice and work to reach entire households. And so we connected with Dr. Dario Valles, a sociolinguistics scholar and translator of InterseccionAlianza. As you may have already noticed, our translator, if you were that eager beager and got the book before today, Dr. Dario intentionally replaced non-gender inclusive language with gender-neutral language. This is indicated by the use of the X, like todxs. We see the use of gender-neutral language not as the last word on language, but as an opportunity to challenge, discuss, and think about these norms. InterseccionAlianza includes a translator's note that deeply discusses these important choices made by Dr. Dario Moore. So grab your copy today with that awesome coupon. I'm a sales rep and a member of CLC.
All right, okay, let's get to the fun part. So Karina and LaToya are going to read the book. Karina will read the book in Spanish, and LaToya will read it following page by page in English. Since I know some of you might have read InterseccionAlianza or InterseccionAlianza before, I want you to think a little bit deeper this time and listen for 1, 2, and 3. So at the end, we'll talk about that for ourselves. And if you have some reflections in the chat, we absolutely encourage you to tell us about them. So first, do you relate to any of the characters in the book, and which ones and why? How does culture and ancestry shape the stories that you hear? And why does allyship matter? So allyship is one of those words we sometimes hear a lot of the time, or maybe not at all, but really it's another word for friendship. So what examples of friendship do you see in the book? Karina, do you want to introduce in Spanish?
Yes. Are we reading the first page or? There we go. Okay, perfect. Mira las vidas de un grupo de amigues. Si una necesita, los demás participan. La edad es un aspecto que cada una de ellas comparte. Pero las vidas de jóvenes son tan distintas como ya luego aprenderán. Cada niña tiene su historia y su punto de vista lleno de pasión y con potencia como tú.
Witness the lives of a bold group of friends. If one is in need, another defends. Age is one trait that each of them share, but kids' lives are unique, as you'll soon be aware. Each child has a story and their own point of view, filled with passion and power, just like you.
Mi nombre es Alejandra, pero me dicen Ale. Uso una silla, lo cual no me define. En cambio, me permite volar y jugar. Cuando necesito avanzar, las amigas me ayudan a tomar un paso.
My name is Alejandra, but I go by Allie. I use a chair, but it doesn't define me. Instead, it allows me to zip, glide, and play. When I need to get through, friends help make a way.
Donde hay espacio para algunos, hacemos espacio para todos. La amistad puede ser una alianza, no importa tu tamaño.
Where there's room for some, we make room for all. Friends can be allies, no matter how small.
Hola, soy Parker. Después de la escuela todos los días, la familia de Ale nos cuida a los dos mientras jugamos. Mi mamá trabaja duro para mantenerme. Su amor es la fuente de nuestra estabilidad. Ni los juguetes, ni el dinero, ni los tesoros no contados. El cuidado comunitario es más precioso que el oro.
Hello, I'm Parker. After school every day, Allie's family takes care of us both while we play. My mom works hard to provide for me. Her love's the source of our stability. Not toys or money, nor treasures untold. Community care is more precious than gold.
Las fardas y los adornos son lindos, supongo, pero mi capa de superhéroe es más Kate que esos moños. Algunos pueden estar confundidos de que un niñex como yo pueda ponerse lo que desea y estar orgullosos y sin preocupaciones. Mis amigues defienden mis opciones y derechos. Un baño, como todos los lugares, debería ser un espacio seguro.
Skirts and frills are cute, I suppose, but my superhero cape is more Kate than those bows. Some may be confused that a kid like me can wear what I want and be proud and carefree. My friends defend my choices in place. A bathroom, like all rooms, should be a safe space.
Okay, I wanted to pop in for a little teaching moment. So as I mentioned when I introduced myself, I used she or ella pronouns. However, our friend Kate is non-binary, which means they feel both masculine and feminine. And I say they because Kate prefers the pronouns they, their, and them. We respect Kate's choice in pronouns by saying Kate's Kate makes them feel strong. All right, I'll kick it back over to you, Karina.
Okay. Me llamo Adila y al igual que Kate, lo que llevo puesto inspira un debate constante. Algunos donan, algunos recitan, algunos cantan y otros rezan. Mi hijab es mi decisión. Puedes elegir tu propio camino.
My name is Adila, and just like Kate, what I wear inspires endless debate. Some give, some chant, some sing, some pray. The hijab is my choice. You can choose your own way.
La ropa que llevas nunca justifica el odio. La ropa puede ser divertida, sencilla o sagrada. Cubierta, adornada o con toque de estilo. Mi cuerpo es mío, lo visto con cariño.
The clothes that you wear never justify hatred. Clothes can be playful, simple, or sacred, covered, adorned, or with casual flair. My body's my own. I dress it with care.
Now, every culture and community gives meaning to clothing, dress, and style. One way to gain respect for different people and different groups of people around you is to think about why their clothing is important to them. So today, for example, I am wearing a shirt that I really love. It says Audrey and Ange Marie and Angela. I don't know if you can see it, and Kimberly. But these are women scholars who have really shaped the way I think about the world, and I enjoy bringing them around me as I go about my day to really shine off of their strength. So what about you, LaToya? What's something that you wear that's really important to who you are?
Yes, it's actually on my head, my locks. My locks are super important to me because they represent my culture in the African-American community, Black community. Locks are super, it's a wonderful style, and you'll see a lot of people who look like me wearing them. What about you, Karina?
For me, it's the bracelet that I wear every day. It actually belonged to my grandma, my abuelita Juana, who passed about 10 years ago, and she was one of my best friends in life. So having something that belonged to her, you know, on my hand every day brings me a lot of comfort and confidence, and it almost feels like I'm holding her hand, which I know is really it might have been a bit cheesy, but that's how much she meant to me in my life and how much comfort and safety I feel having it on. So I always make sure that I put it on every morning.
Karina, that's so beautiful. I feel like there's nothing like an heirloom to really connect you to the people that you love. It's that like physical representation of their life and what they meant to you and who they were and what they chose to adorn themselves with. So I think that's so beautiful.
Thank you.
All right, back to the book.
Okay. Mi nombre es Naya. Y con lo que hay en las noticias, es fácil asustarse y cantar el blues. Para ella, para ellos, para él y para mí, todos merecemos respirar y ser libres.
My name is Naya, and with what's on the news, it's easy to be frightened or sing the blues. For her, for them, for him, and for me, we all deserve to breathe and be free.
El color de nuestra piel no es razón para esconderse. Protestamos por la seguridad, la igualdad y el orgullo LGBT. Nuestras amigas se unen en solidaridad y amor. Eso es lo que están hechos las alianzas.
The color of our skin is no reason to hide. We protest for safety, equality, and pride. Our friends join along in solidarity and love. This is the stuff that allies are made of.
La seguridad también incluye nuestros árboles y raíces, la tierra que hemos llamado nuestra casa, nuestros lugares de oración. Soy Dakota y como mis antepasados, mi tribu y yo somos protectores del agua. De las ganancias y el poder nos levantamos para preservar nuestras naciones, nuestras culturas y el respeto que merecemos.
Safety also includes our trees and air, the land we've called home, our places of prayer. I am Dakota, and like my ancestors, my tribe and I are water protectors. From profit and power, we stand up to preserve our nations, our cultures, and the respect we deserve.
So you may have noticed that a lot of the names in the book have a special meaning. So Naya, who's pictured on the right here, her name means purpose in Swahili, which is a language that's spoken really commonly in East Africa, in places like Kenya. And Dakota means friend or ally in the Lakota Sioux language. So many names have special meanings. And like Karina's bracelet that she wears every day, my name is an heirloom. So my middle name is Elise, and it was my mom's middle name growing up. When she got married, she replaced Elise with her maiden name, or her last name that she grew up with. But when I was born, she missed it so much that she passed it along to me to preserve the beautiful name that she felt connected to. What about you, LaToya? Can you tell us something special about your name?
Yes, so my name is LaToya, and it is unique, I believe, and I love my name. But that hasn't always been the case. So when I was growing up, I used to be teased by people by my name. Some people would ask, why is your name LaToya? Or why do Black people name their kids names like that? And so I often felt that my name was ghetto or not normal. But as I've grown older, I've learned to embrace my name and I love it. And fun fact, I've never been in the room with more than one LaToya. So if your name is LaToya, drop it in the chat. If not, then I'm still right. I don't see the chat increasing, so I'm still right, which is great. So all my folks out there who have names where you don't always hear it or it's not always common, you're unique, like me, and everyone's unique. What about you, Karina?
I love hearing these stories first. Second, I also love my name. My full name is Karina Santillano, and many people always have trouble with my last name. And so what I really love is when people ask me how to pronounce my last name, so then I'm able to let them know, and also answer any questions about my heritage, which is Mexican. And I love being able to continue on my family name, Santillano. So it represents so much to me and so much of my identity. And it's so special. So I am looking forward to keeping my name kind of like Chelsea's mom did, and kind of keeping it there with my name. So even if I get married, it's important to me.
I love that. I love that. So one thing we always like to ask, so throw this in the chat. Many people do change their names over time because they don't like their name, because another name feels like it resonates more with who they are. So if you could change your name to anything in the world, what would you change it to? And you can throw that in the chat too. All right. Back to you, Karina.
Me llamo Gloria y tengo 7 años. Después de la escuela, a la frutería me voy. Trabajando cada día junto a mi madre, vendemos piña dulce y mangos con chile. Mi idioma y mi inteligencia nos permiten prosperar. Tengo esperanzas y sueños y aptitudes y ganas. Trabajar juntos nos hace a ambos más seguros. Soy una hija, una compañera y una empresaria.
My name is Gloria y tengo 7 años. After school is to la frutería I go. Trabajo cada día junto a mi madre. Vendemos piña dulce y mangos con chile. My language and savvy allow us to thrive. I've got hopes and dreams and skills and drive. Working together makes us both more secure. I'm a daughter, a partner, and an entrepreneur.
So Gloria, like many of you all here, is bilingual, which means she speaks 2 languages, Spanish and English, and it helps her and her family navigate multiple communities. So I'd love to know in the chat as well, does anyone here speak another language at home? You can raise your hand if you speak another language at home. I always love to hear about that. I grew up sometimes speaking sign language because people in my church community, many of them were deaf. And so I learned to sign at an early age, and you may see some sign language in the book. All right.
Me llamo Hijang y nací en Sol. Me mudé aquí cuando tenía 5 años. Soy parte de lo que se llama la generación 1.5. Mis padres y yo extendemos ambas naciones. Como Gloria, ayudo a mi madre, traduciendo para ella una palabra a otra. Cuando el propietario le dice a mamá, ¿puedes pagarme el próximo viernes? Repito en coreano, Oma rentu kanju kamyo ide na do tende. Navegamos juntos por la vida en nuestro nuevo hogar, porque las niñas son capaces de hacer que cada día sea mejor.
My name is Hijang, and I was born in Seoul. I moved here when I was 5 years old. I'm part of what's called the 1.5 generation. My parents and I span 2 different nations. Like Gloria, I am a help to my mother by translating for her one word to another. When the landlord tells mom, you can pay me next Friday, I repeat in Korean, Oma rentu damju gamyori narotende. We navigate life in our new home together. God's kids have the skills to make every day better.
So we are hearing a lot of different languages today. We heard some Spanish, and now we also heard some Korean. So do any of you all want to learn Korean today? Karina, LaToya, you want to learn some Korean?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So the very most important word in the Korean language is Saranghae, which means I love you. And Hee-jung says this to her mom all the time. So I'll teach you all how to say Saranghae. So repeat after me. Sa,
Sa,
rang,
rang,
he,
hey,
Saranghae.
Saranghae.
Saranghae. So oftentimes we use this hand sign for Saranghae, and you can make a heart. Saranghae.
Aww.
Saranghae. Saranghae LaToya. Saranghae Karina.
Saranghae.
Do you all want to learn Saranghae in sign language?
Yes.
We'll do a fourth language today. Okay, so this is Saranghae, or I love you, in American Sign Language. So you can remember it because this is the letter I for I. This is the letter L for love. And this is Y for you. So when you put them together, this is Saranghae, or I love you, in ASL, American Sign Language. And when you wave it back, that's a way to say, I love you too. So Saranghae and Saranghae.
Oh, love that.
Right.
Mi nombre es Yuri y soy nuevo en este país. La familia de Hee-jung me recibió con amor y con gracia. Encontrar refugio significaba viajar lejos de casa. Navegué, volé, viajé y recorrí, escapando de la violencia, la guerra, la angustia y la intrusión. Vinimos a este país buscando sueños y inclusión.
My name is Yuri, and I'm new to this place. Hee-jung's family welcomed me with love and with grace. Finding refuge meant traveling far from home. I sailed, I flew, I rode, and I roamed. Escaping violence, war, heartache, and intrusion, we came to this nation seeking dreams and inclusion.
So the last three stories we heard, Yuri, Gloria, and Hee-jung, all three are stories about migration. So migration means moving from one land to another. So each of them live in a place that's different from where their ancestors or older people in their family are from. So all of us have ancestors. And we've learned about some of me and Karina's ancestors today, her grandmother, my mother, and their stories help make us who we are. So for me, my ancestors are from West Africa. They arrived in the United States through the transatlantic slave trade, where hundreds of thousands of people were transported from West Africa in bondage as slaves hundreds of years ago. So many of them, most of them in my family, on my mom's side were taken to Georgia, on my dad's side to Mississippi, and continued to live in the South until the 1950s, or my mom's generation, when they moved to the Midwest to states like Illinois and Michigan. So we call that the Great Migration. So a lot of people talk about the Great Migration as a time where Black people moved north to places like Minneapolis as well in search of new opportunities, but often they were pushed out from racism in the South. So my grandfather, Willie Guthrie, he was registering people to vote in LaToya, Georgia, which is right outside of Atlanta. And that wasn't taken too kindly to a lot of his community. And so the KKK actually threatened him. And so he packed up overnight, leaving my mom and her sisters in Georgia with their mother. And that's how they ended up in the Midwest, where I grew up in Chicago. And many, many of us have stories just like this. And I know that to be the case here in Minnesota as well. So Karina, I know we've talked about histories of migration in your family. Do you want to share?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, my family is from Mexico, and the story with that is that both, actually my dad's side of the story, so the grandma who passed down the bracelet to me, my grandparents went to Florida, were actually orange pickers in the fields, and made money that way, and then moved to Indiana where my uncle had moved and married a US citizen there. And then my dad came to the US, and then my grandparents and my dad moved to San Diego because the weather was just so good. They liked the Midwest, but they didn't like the Midwest's weather. So San Diego has always been home for me because of their journey from a different country, from Mexico. And even growing up, our connection to Mexico has always been strong with visits back home. And of course, San Diego isn't very far from the US-Mexico border. So going to Tijuana was normal, especially for medical care, given the not so good medical situations for many people, especially undocumented people. So yeah, my migration story is very much with me and part of my life and part of my parents' life. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing, Karina. And for those who are listening, I'd love to know, like, wherever you are at home, raise your hand if your parents are from Minneapolis. If your family was from outside of Minneapolis, curious to know where. And if you don't know, talk to a grown-up in your family. It's a really awesome way to hear and learn about your personal history. Okay.
De cerca, de lejos, de aquí, de allá, somos más que nuestros orígenes. Todos merecemos protección.
From near, from far, from here, from there, more than our origins, we all deserve care.
Raza, religión, ciudadanía, clase y capacidad. Cada una de ellas se intersecta para formar una identidad. La edad, el género, el tamaño y el color de la piel también. Puede hacer que la vida sea diferente para un ex amiguex que para ti.
Race, religion, citizenship, class, and ability. Each of these intersects to form identity. Age, gender, size, and skin color too can make living life different for a friend than for you.
So diversity means having a group where there are many differences and they coexist and are honored, like you see here. So the hands on this page have many different skin tones, and you also see some henna. We see Saranghae as well, and each one is beautiful.
Las barreras y los prejuicios suelen ser los culpables. Nos esforzamos por la igualdad, pero no la conformidad. Los altibajos de vida pueden tomar muchas formas, pero estando juntos cambiamos las normas.
Barriers and biases are often to blame. We strive to be equal, but not all the same. Life's ups and downs can take many forms, but standing together will rewrite the norms.
Donde hay espacio para algunos, hacemos espacio para todos. La amistad puede ser una alianza, no importa tu tamaño.
Where there's room for some, we make room for all. Friends can be allies, no matter how small.
Okay, the end. Okay, so Intersection Allies is a book about allyship, which means doing your part to make sure that those around you feel safe, included, and valued. It doesn't just mean noticing when people feel scared or unsafe or left out, but actively doing something to change the situation. So making room is an action. It takes practice. When you first learn about making room, you may make mistakes, but like brushing your teeth, you get better at it with practice. You have to do it over and over again for our communities, our classrooms, and our friend groups to be healthy. And when you make a mistake, in which we always do, allyship means saying, I'm sorry, and putting into practice to try and not make the same mistake again. So importantly, allyship can take many forms. What you need to feel safe and included may be different than what a friend needs. And that takes us to the important topic of intersectionality.
So what is intersectionality? Intersectionality may sound like it is a big word, but it really isn't. It is an idea that helps you feel strong and empowered by all the things that make you you. So for example, I am a woman, and so my gender is a woman. My race is Black. Together, that makes me a Black woman. I also have some other intersections like my size. I identify as a fat Black woman. Now, don't go and call your friends fat if they don't give you permission, because a part is asking people first what their identities are or how they want to be defined in a space. But my size is a part of me. And as I think about intersectionality and how it empowers me to be who I am, I can't help but think about characters that I relate to in the book, like Parker, Naya, and other characters, and Kate. But today I'm going to focus on Kate, and I'm going to focus on Kate for one reason. Now, if you remember, Kate is non-binary and go by they, them pronouns. Kate also has their friends show up for them in terms of bathroom safety, and their friends show up as allies and make room for Kate's identity as non-binary and needing to use a bathroom. How does that relate to me? Well, because while I'm not non-binary and while I do not go by they, them pronouns, I know what it feels like to need friends to show up to make space for me and my identity and the body that I embody. As I mentioned, I identify as fat. So sometimes my friends have to make room for me to make sure restaurants, spaces are inclusive of different body sizes. How about you, Chelsea? What characters do you relate to?
Yeah, well, I really relate to Naya. So Naya was the child who, got really scared by what she saw on the news. And, as many of you all likely feel and have witnessed over the last year here in Minneapolis, it's a familiar thing to happen. And seeing police on our streets in that way is also something that's really familiar to me. But also on the other side of it, so is that solidarity, people coming together to make their experiences, make their issues with those experiences known and felt. And something that I really love about this city here in Minneapolis is that so many people are committed to rethinking policing, to rethinking the ways that our communities are structured and who doesn't feel safe and why. So I really relate to that, and I'm sure many of you all here also see that. What about you, Karina?
For me, I related with Gloria and Yuri because translating for my mom at doctor's office, at school, from a very young age, which is really, it's such a funny image to think about, like a little girl translating really hard language and ideas to her parents. But that is what my life was like and what I know many people's lives are like. And also why resources and staff members at places who can speak multiple languages besides English is so important. It's also why InterseccionAlianza is so special, because I can read it with my mom and introduce her to intersectionality, which has been such an important idea in my graduate career. So it's kind of helping her understand what I do. So thank you to the authors.
So what we're talking about are privileges. And thank you, Karina, for sharing. That's another part about intersectionality. And when we look at these intersecting identities together, that each of us have privileges and challenges, things that make our lives sometimes unfair. We can use our privileges, like our US citizenship status, immigration status, to help our friends who do not have status in order to help them feel safe and their families to live and go to school here. We use our privilege as well of having a bathroom to go to in public spaces, to make bathrooms accessible for all people, no matter their gender. And other sorts of privileges include money, time, physical abilities, our voice. And when we speak, we should speak up and speak loud. And remember, the personal is political.
All right, so that's it for us. I know we have some time left if there are any questions. So thank you so much, Wild Rumpus. This was really, really fun.
Yeah, thank you guys. That book is really, really special. And I know growing up, I didn't have a book like that. So I really, really love that you guys made that book. And one question that I had in particular was, because there are so many people who worked on this book, what was that collaboration like? And did your own experiences contribute to the process of making this book?
Kelsey?
Oh, sure, yeah. So it was collaborative from the start. So LaToya is being really humble here, kicking it over to me because she had the original idea to write a book for kids, noticing that what we were talking about in grad school and in academic spaces wasn't really reaching K through 12 educators. And so she came to me and Carolyn, who couldn't be here today, our third author, and said, like, what if we do this together? And each of us sort of have our own kind of skills. I like to kind of get creative. LaToya spent a lot of time working with kids as a camp counselor. And Carolyn also has really deep roots in activist spaces. So I was really thinking about the intersection of our skills and our interests and how to really build off of each other's strengths. And so when something isn't as complicated as intersectionality and you're trying to break it down in words that really young people and people who speak English as a second language, that was really important for us in the original English version, can understand, you need people to check you and be like, okay, you're making leaps here, and what you think is easy to understand actually isn't so. So collaboration was super important among the three of us, but also beyond the three of us. So we contacted a lot of our friends to give feedback on the book throughout. We did initial readings, and a lot of the characters are also based on some of our grad school mentors, students who are just a few years older than us, their dissertations. So Gloria's character is from our academic auntie, Amir Estrada, whose work was on language brokers and people who street vend with their parents in Los Angeles, which was illegal at the time. And Hee Jung's character is based off of our other academic auntie, Hye Young Kwan. So we were really, working together as a trio, working together with other people in grad school. Like Karina is also from our program. So there's a lot of just like reaching to our community and really supporting each other. And so we wouldn't be here today, even in this very moment, without Karina's collaboration. So from the very beginning past the end, it's all been about working together. And this has been a project that, now that I'm graduated and I don't get to see these two every day, it's something that keeps our friendship going. So it's been special in that way too.
That's really wonderful. I also had a question of what tips do you have for parents and educators or caregivers about how to build a more inclusive bookshelves? Because like I said, it's very important to have books like InterseccionAlianza, and growing up, I didn't have that. And now there are thankfully more and more books coming out like that. But what tips do you have for parents who are looking to build up bookshelves?
Yes, so thank you for that question. So the first tip is staying plugged into your local bookstores and the libraries, read aloud. Even if you're not going to the bookstore to purchase a book, right? Like you might want to go, like maybe like walk by and see like who's featured, or like browse the bookstore selections, and you say, hey, well, if I can't get it here, maybe I can go get it at the library. If you hear about books, like if like your school brings in people, you know, advocate for those books in your public library. You can go and say, hey, like I would like for this book to be in the public library, or ask like Wild Rumpus, oh, I heard about this book. Can you feature it in or put it in your bookstore? Staying plugged into, I know there are like organizations like The Conscious Kid, and Chelsea, feel free to chime in with more as you think of them, and other groups on Instagram that, you know, talk about inclusive children's books. So if you have access to Instagram, you can follow The Conscious Kid. You can follow Asian Literature is Lit, other African American, Black American children's authors, same as with Latinx authors, and just see what they're publishing and see what's, so if you find one good thing to do is, if you really can't do any of that, is type in the name of like Jacqueline Woodson's, everyone knows her book, or our book actually, type our book into Amazon, and then a whole list of, Amazon does a great algorithm thing where they like curate a list of like books that are like this. So even if you remember the name of our book, type it into Amazon and you'll see books like The Proudest Blue, and which is about hijabs, and other books about water protectors that are available that talk about some of these same concepts and ideas. And if you can't get it there, go to your public library and say, hey, if we don't have this book in our library, put it here, or go to your favorite bookstore, Wild Rumpus, and get your copy and have it for story time.
Yeah, those are really wonderful tips. Do you guys have another book coming up, or any other projects that you're working on that we can be on the lookout for?
We do. So we are deep in the messiness of writing a second book on families. So LaToya is a family scholar, and so we are really benefiting from her deep well of knowledge of intersectional families and families who are dealing with things like incarceration, transnational families, intercultural families, multi-generational families. So we are wading in our literature right now and also turning that into something like Intersection Allies, and it'll be called Love Without Bounds. So we're hoping that that will be out next year in 2022.
That's super exciting. I'll definitely be on the lookout for that. That sounds super, super cool. Lee, did you have any other questions?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. Muchísimas gracias por esa presentación fabulosa. At the beginning of the presentation, you mentioned that it was when you were kids, young readers, you couldn't find many books where you felt portrayed or represented or seen. And I was wondering if since that time, or even as children, there were some books that really spoke to you, or that really made you feel seen in a way that is so often lacking. Mi pregunta es si, bueno, al principio de la presentación comentaron ustedes que muchas veces de niñas no se vieron representadas en la literatura infantil. Y mi pregunta es si han encontrado desde entonces algún libro o algunos libros que les hagan sentir vistas representadas.
Two things immediately come to mind for me as books that really I gravitated to as a kid. So the first were American Girl, and I was a big American Girl fan. I don't know if you all are children of the 90s, so kiddos who are watching, maybe, I don't know if it's still cool, but I really loved Addie's story because it shared my personal history. So I remember having lots of conversations using that book as a tool with my mom around our history and me getting to understand that more. And so starting from that character, we sort of made our way to just, different histories of the other characters. But that was, I think, the only book that I really had on my bookshelf that was like for kids, but really historical and well-researched. But on the other side, the second book that came to mind, also as like a kid of the 90s, were the Junie B Jones books. Because did any of you all read Junie B Jones? Because I see some smiles. Okay, so she's like very, like energetic, like lots of creativity, just kind of like bounding, very precocious. And it was cool to see a girl who was, moving around the world in that way and like, celebrated in her quirkiness and really funny. So I saw myself in that less conventional depiction of girlhood. And it made me feel like, I can get messy and I can have fun. And I really enjoyed that series as a kid. LaToya, Karina, do you have anything you want to share too? Such a good question.
Well, first, the American Girl series also resonated with me, especially, I believe her name was Josefina, just because I felt like she was me and I was her kind of thing, even though her story was different than mine, but just like the language kind of connection, and just seeing someone like her in that bookshelf and in elementary school was so meaningful to me. And I was like, I wanted to read more about Josefina's life. So American Girl, I agree. Junie B Jones was my thing as well. I also really loved the Ramona Quimby books by Beverly Clearly, because I loved her relationship with her mom, her sister, and she was a younger sister, but so independent and so opinionated. And I felt like me as a younger sister and the only girl, we just resonated a lot with just our attitude about life and everything. So love Ramona. So the young girls represented in books at that time were really special to me.
I will echo my friends and colleagues. The American Girl series, I really love that series, and just seeing like Addie's story. I was like, I learned so much actually about girlhood through Addie's story and like seeing that history. Also, Anansi the spider. I think Anansi's stories were very funny and interesting, and my mom used his stories as lessons for my sister and I sometimes if she needed to. She's like, well, let's read a book by that features Anansi the spider. And I like its connection to West Africa and being able to, even though I don't know, like I know my roots and my ancestors are from West Africa, but having that as a child was great. And then I like the Boxcar Children. I thought they were just so brave. I was like, wow, like they really showed that kids can take a challenging situation of being parentless at such a young age and doing so many great things with it. And they took a positive spin on that and just their bravery to just go out and figure out mysteries, figure out who did what. I was like, wow, we really don't give youth the credit that they are able to change the world. And we kind of see similarities with that with the Parkland youth, right, who were out there protesting against for gun safety in schools, right, at such young ages. So, yeah.
Lee and Jess, I'm really curious for you all what those books were for you.
Yeah, I think for me, definitely Junie B Jones and Josefina, like Karina said. I'm also Mexican, so I really related to her and I really loved her. But Junie B Jones for sure was like definitely what got me into reading and how I like definitely saw myself in books, because she was just quirky and funny and I really, really loved her.
When I was a middle grade reader, so kind of between the ages of 8 and 12, I really gravitated towards books that, towards historical fiction that took place in what is now the former Soviet Union. My grandpa was an immigrant from Russia at the beginning of the 20th century. Okay, there we go. And so I loved reading books set in the place where he was from. One of my favorites was The Endless Step by Esther Hautzig. It's actually a memoir about a young Polish Jewish girl who is exiled with her family to Siberia during World War II. And it's about the experiences she has there and how she comes of age in a place that I didn't know much about, but still felt an ancestral connection to because of my grandfather's history. I also really loved fantasy featuring strong female characters. So the Garth Nix, the Sabriel, and also the Golden Compass, His Dark Materials series as well.
I love that. I want to check some of those out. So I might reach out to you, Lee, after. I'm trying to get back into some middle grade stuff, you know? Like, I feel like there's so much beauty. I think that was like my favorite time as a kid, was like middle school. So I'm kind of wanting to revisit that time through books.
All right, well, I think we are at time. I just want to say thank you again to LaToya, Chelsea, and Karina for coming on and reading this book and teaching us about intersectionality. I think we really learned a lot, and I hope that everyone gets this book and is able to share it with other people. Don't forget about the 15% off code. It will be in the chat. It's valid for 1 month. So yeah, thank you again for coming, and thank you everyone for joining us.
Muchísimas gracias a las presentadoras, muchísimas gracias a ustedes por estar aquí con nosotros en otra hora de cuentos bilingüe. Thank you so much to the presenters and to you, the audience, for being with us at Bilingual Storytime. As you know, Bilingual Storytime at Wild Rumpus happens digitally once a month on the 4th Saturday of every month. The videos go up on our social media around 10 a.m. on the 4th Saturday, and they're up for approximately 24 hours. Como saben ustedes, la hora de cuentos bilingüe se hace el 4º sábado de cada mes. Los videos se suben a nuestras redes sociales tipo 10 de la mañana, el 4º sábado del mes, y se bajan al día siguiente, a la mañana siguiente. I am about to have a baby, so I will not be here to do bilingual story time with you all next month. Our next bilingual story time is scheduled for the 4th Saturday in June, which is June 26th. But Jess has agreed to take over. So please, please, please join Jess and all of us at Wild Rumpus on June 26th. Yo no puedo estar con ustedes en junio, el 26 de junio, para Bilingual Storytime, la hora de cuentos bilingüe, porque estoy por dar a luz en cualquier momento. Pero Jess se va a encargar. Entonces, por favor, únanse a Jess el 26 de junio, tipo 10 de la mañana, en nuestras redes sociales, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube.
Yeah, so once again, thank you everyone, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for joining us, LaToya, Karina, and Chelsea, and we hope you guys all have a wonderful day. Gracias.
Muchas gracias.
Yes.
Gracias.